We see the signs in business windows everywhere we go. Help wanted or be patient. Our people showed up for work today. I've seen some really creative signs in some of these places. Frankly, I've avoided a lot of fast food places just because no one's working there. Companies across the country have reduced hours and often close entirely because they cannot find enough good workers. I went on my way into the studio today and was going to get a soft drink, and the line was all the way to the door. And I said, I'm not waiting. It's just because one person showed up for work. Now, according to a recent report from the Census Bureau, 100 million Americans were not working last month. Now, are these people out of the labor market and therefore not counted in the unemployment numbers? Now, why does that matter? Is there a connection between the unemployment rate and the actions like what we saw today by the Federal Reserve, raising interest rates once again by 0.75 of a percentage point? Joining me now to discuss this is Jerry Bowyer, president of Bowyer Research and author of The Maker versus the Takers, What Jesus Really Said About Social Justice and Economics. Jerry, welcome back to the program.
Tony, great to be with you again.
All right, so the Census Bureau, for various reasons, various factors, 100 million people not in the workforce. Some of those retired, obviously, as the baby boomer generation almost turns the workforce into an inverted pyramid. But then you've got a lot of folks from COVID not coming back in. You've got people who are just saying, I'm not going back to work. That's a lot of people. So are they have they just taken themselves out of the workforce and are therefore not being reflected in the unemployment numbers?
That's right. That's correct. To be called unemployed, you have to be seeking work. You have to be in the labor market and not have a job. You have to fulfill those two ideas. So if you are out of the labor market, let's say you're retired, that's one of the ways people leave the labor market. Another way people leave the labor market is what's called discouraged worker. The labor market is so bad you can't find a job and you just give up and stay home. That's another. So you're not counted as unemployed anymore. But now we have new categories. They're not technically new, but they're rather larger than they've ever been, which is just don't bother to work. Retire early. We have a tremendous number of early retirees. For example, when we saw the COVID shutdown, right, in the spring of 2020, we saw every kind of labor market participation rate drop. But different groups came back over time. The group that never came back was 55 and older. The labor participation rate for people 55 and older is almost exactly the same as it was in the spring of 2020. So they took early retirement. Women came back to normal. Men came back to about maybe half or 3/4 of normal. So the drivers are people are aging out, and they're boomers that have aged out and didn't replace themselves. So there's a contraception abortion story here that's actually extremely important. I'd say abortion is the single biggest driver of our labor shortage right now. But you'll also have a shift in work ethic, where for most of my life, if you were a young man of able body, you would be ashamed not to work.
Right.
And that's no longer the case.
So when they say we have this historic low unemployment, that, we have everybody basically who wants to work working, it's not a true picture of what we have out there. We have a lot of people who are not working, and so this is somewhat of an artificial picture.
Yes. Oh, the unemployment rate is very distorted. You would associate our current unemployment rates with a very strong economy. We just had a recession in the first half of this year. A recession is 2 quarters in a row of negative economic growth, and that's what we had. The first and second quarter of this year. The first 6 months of the year, the economy was contracting. The unemployment rate never went above 4%. That's unheard of. Why? Because never in our history have we had the kind of demographics that we've had now. So it makes the economy look healthier to look at the unemployment rate. And I think you've already alluded to this. It makes the Fed feel safer in raising interest rates and contracting the money supply and contracting credit, because they have two mandates. One is fight inflation, and the other is don't let unemployment get too high. And they can say, well, unemployment isn't too high, to which we say, unemployment actually really is high if you adjust for the fact that we are losing maybe 500,000 people out of the labor force every year who have aged out of the labor force. And basically, from Roe versus Wade to now, everyone after Roe to now, everyone who was born after that would be 50 or under, because it was 50 years ago. Well, that's 66 million people who would be 50 or under, who aren't in the labor force. 44 million of them would be over 18. So 18 to 50, 44 million people are missing. So abortion has left us with a labor shortage, which makes the unemployment rate number look better than it really is, when what we really have is a labor shortage. And we have a labor shortage because we have a people shortage, and we have a people shortage because we made a generation dispensable for the sake of convenience.
And then you have, as you said, the Fed making these decisions that affect the entire economy based upon a distorted number, which is going to have some significant ramifications for the overall economy. Jerry, I want to continue this conversation at some point. We're out of time today, but always great to talk with you, and very insightful. And I think our policymakers need to get a grip on this, because the numbers they're given are not accurate. Jerry Bowyer, good to see you.
Good to see you.